It's another Manly Monday, and I am wearing more makeup than usual this Manly Monday. I did the first Nerd Music Nation for New Music Nation I've done in a while, which felt good because I haven't done one since I got COVID. So that was a nice little milestone, marking progress. Pretty exciting. It was tough. I'm not 100%, but I did it. And I was down at Paradise Comics, Young and Lawrence down in Toronto, looking at all the old cool shit, like first appearance of Wolverine, first appearance of Elektra, like awesome stuff. And then awesome music. There are two tracks in particular I just went fucking apeshit over. So check that out when it comes out. But today, this is by request. A client, a Leanna Cares client, asked me to do a video about women who are awkward with men. And being down at a comic book store, it sort of inspired me to do that this week. I try to be in the right energy to talk about stuff, so it's sort of fun instead of clinical. But if you want to support this work and you want to continue the sort of ecosystem that's going on, help support this channel, become a monthly patron, patreon.com/LeannaK, or buy a one-time Leanna Care session for someone who can use it but can't afford it, coffee.com/LeannaK. You guys have been so great with the coffee support lately. It's really been helping out people. I'm going to have to start doing testimonials or something like that, like anonymous testimonials, so you guys can see the progress people are making, based on these donated sessions. It's really helping out a lot. But women who are awkward around men. Every time I do something like this, I get people screaming at me in the comments that I should keep my day job, that I should not give advice about stuff. And these are guys who complain that women don't like them. And then a woman speaks and they don't listen. And there seems to be this perception, to greater or lesser degrees, that guys are the only ones that are awkward socially and that women aren't hot messes and, don't have insecurities and how they function. And I hear that in assumptions that a lot of guys have about the opposite sex. And then, I talk to women. I mean, I'm not a typical woman, so learning to speak girl was something I had to learn. But, I hear what women are saying, and I hear what men are saying about women, and it's just a complete disconnect. And it's such a disconnect that when I try to say this, some guys don't listen. So I'm putting this out there so that you guys can understand that if somebody leaves a comment like that, I'm just going to ignore it. Because, yeah. So two of the things you have to keep in mind about female socialization, and this is before we get into the sort of, internal characteristics of each person. But one is that women are trained to believe that everything that happens to them is their fault. Now, I'm not saying some men aren't trained this way either, but this is a thing with women. If you're taken advantage of, it's your fault. If some guy calls you a slut, it's your fault. If somebody calls you ugly, it's your fault. Any nasty thing another person does to you is your fault somehow. It's fucking brainworms. It's stupid. And you're like, oh, some women don't act that way. Yeah, it's a front. Because they are trying to counteract the brainworms so hard. This is just a thing. The other is that you have to be nice no matter what. And this is something that never took with me. And I'm not entirely sure why, because I was a really quiet kid. But it's never taken with me that you should be nice to the point of dishonesty. It's always been, because I've always thought it is not nice in the long term to lie to someone. It's better to give someone an uncomfortable truth. Say it as nicely as you can, but be honest, right? That was always my thought, that lying to someone, it's not nice. It's manipulative, right? You're doing it to avoid some sort of confrontation or something. It isn't true kindness, but that's the wrong answer in girl world. And you can imagine the mess of insecurities that this creates in the people who are subjected to this programming. So, most women are just as awkward as men, just in different ways, right? Because men have that awkwardness connected to, well, you have to make the first move, but don't be creepy. You have to be aggressive, but not too much. You have to seem aggressive, but not predatory. And you have to seem confident, but not arrogant, right? That's all. Those are the mixed messages that men get, where women are, you have to be, you can't be too upfront or else you'll intimidate men. This is what's told, not what's true, what women are told, right? If you're too upfront, you're going to intimidate men. They're not going to see you as feminine, and so they're not going to see you as dating material. Now, this might be true because that's what happens to me. I don't read as female, even with these boobs. Like, that takes a lot. And I was a C cup in grade 5, so you can't even say when I was younger it wasn't like this. No, it was always like, it's amazing how much other signals override certain things. And so there's that, don't be too forward, but you don't want to, the other thing that women get is manipulative. You don't want to be manipulative, right? So it's this idea of being coy, I don't do that well. I'm a very, okay, here's the way it is person. That's just me. But that is doing it wrong, according to Girl World. You can imagine how much that messes a person up, not being able to come out and say anything direct, right? And then there's the whole nice thing. And this is where I think a lot of the mess comes up with interactions between not just men and women, but women and women, okay? The lesbian drama gets real because either, people go totally against that because somebody has to ask somebody first, right? And so people get this kind of butch aggression thing going on. Or it is sort of, I don't know. Do you want to, but it's this nice thing. And people, women, not being able to say, I don't like this. I don't want to do this. And we get into, they didn't read my nonverbal cues, right? This makes total sense to the person saying it because girls are trained to err on the side of, they don't like you, they think you're annoying, and they don't want you around unless they are told otherwise. And they think that everybody else is socialized the exact same way. So when somebody is socialized a different way and goes, okay, they're not saying no, I'm just going to go ahead, that's seen as a violation, right? That's seen as doing it wrong. And we get a whole bunch of mess. Is that right? No. Is that the way that particular woman has been trained? Yes. And that is very real. And that leads to a whole bunch of awkward, right? Because how do you know what's going on with someone who is never assertive about what they want and never assertive about what they don't want? Yeah, that's the problem, right? So what do we do about it? People are going, no, I'm not. Okay, I understand that that's a no-win situation for everyone involved. And in a perfect world, everybody would be raised the way I was in a community that was, Afro-Caribbean dominant culture. And so, being kind of feisty and being kind of ratchet were considered sort of badges of pride. And everybody said what they meant, certainly more than they do now. I think I was raised better than people are now personally, but that's my bias, right? Because that's what I'm more comfortable with. Maybe because I was raised in it, that very direct approach of, no, we don't do this. We're not doing this. No. There was a reaction, like, it was just sort of, you didn't even realize you were doing it. Sometimes it was kissing your teeth when you didn't like something. Like, when somebody do that, you knew you crossed a line, right? And that's a pretty obvious tell, and people don't have that, especially people who freeze or fawn in response to stress. If you're like, what's she talking about? Fight or flight. It's actually not that. It's fight, freeze, fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. And more, I actually think freezing and fawning are more common than the fight or flight. Freezing is certainly incredibly common. And so somebody freezes. And you can't control when that's going to happen. And this gets into the thing of, obviously if somebody is sitting there saying nothing because they don't know how to navigate the contradiction, people in a room full of people are not going to notice them. And that's what happens with a lot of women. Now, the problem for men is you don't know, or women who are attracted to women, you don't know where that person's being quiet because they're just awkward, or if they're quiet because they want to be left alone, right? And it's one thing when it's another woman approaching. And I mean, the best thing to do is kind of ask of, are you quiet because you're just observing, or, are you super bored or something like that? Asking, and then you get into the problem of somebody's being, oh no, I'm okay. That's what you get. I'm okay. Even if they're not, I'm okay. I'm fine. We all know that I'm fine when they're clearly not fine. Yeah. Women don't do that to be annoying. I'm seeing more and more men do it too, because it's, obviously direct aggression is kind of shamed and punished now. But I would much rather somebody go, no, I'm not fine. But then there's this other thing that is what's not talked about. We talk a lot about men and boys' fear of rejection, because men and boys, the paradigm is, in the comic book, Peter Parker keeps getting rejected by Mary Jane. Clark Kent keep getting rejected by Lois Lane, so on and so forth. Then Batman just has women flinging themselves at him left and right. A lot of women, I personally think this is more common than not. Women are terrified of rejection, not because they need a man's approval or attention, but because women are trained to, everybody needs to like you. There's something wrong with you if people don't like you. And this drives me crazy. I hate this because I know it's a thing, but in my heart of hearts, I really don't give a shit if some rando likes me or not. If I like someone and respect them, I'd like it to be reciprocated. But if somebody doesn't like me, well, it's probably something they think about me, not me. Because, I think I'm a better than average person. But takes all kinds, right? But this is a thing with women. The Taylor Swift song thing. We get into this more in a future episode of Two Women Talking. Song, and I recorded it this weekend, so I won't take too much away from that. But yes, we get into Taylor Swift songs. Um, but it is that, I mean, what is the crock of shit that women are are fed? Because the crock of shit that men are fed is the thing with Batman of women just throwing themselves, or even Black Cat with Spider-Man or things like that, that women just throw themselves at them, and that's some great, exciting, positive feeling thing. It's that great, exciting, positive feeling thing that is the lie, because ask any guy that happens to at clubs or anything like that, it's awkward because the women are usually drunk and too aggressive and grabby below the waist. And it is much a violation and unwanted as it is for women. It's not cool in real life. It doesn't feel good because you didn't ask for it. You don't want it. It's somebody invading your space, right? Whereas the crock that women are sold, the hunk of shit, is that if you're good and kind and, do all the good things and don't ask for everything and, scrub the fireplace like Cinderella, a fairy godmother will come along, get you a dress and a carriage, and you'll go to the ball and you'll meet a handsome prince, and it'll all kind of be given to you, right? And if it's not given to you, something's wrong with you. And that just isn't life. But there are so many stories, at least in The Little Mermaid, Ariel actually seeks out Ursula to be in, Prince Eric's world, right? At least Belle goes on an adventure. I mean, for all the shit Disney princesses get, at least the more modern ones start their own stories. Like, they do something. They make at least one active gesture to get the ball rolling. And I think that's better than, I guess Snow White is because she was going to be killed, but she ran away instead of just, letting it happen. At least she's kind of active. And then she was with the dwarves. But of course, the number of princesses who get a curse and fall asleep and are completely inert, and a prince just sees them and is wowed by their beauty, nothing about the personality. True love's kiss. Based on the way the woman looks in a glass coffin. When we put it this way, shit be fucked, right? But this is the brain worms that women are fed. And no matter how many kind of girl power, more modern stories, there's something so beautiful about those stories that they do worm their way in. And I know I struggled with that when I was younger. I was like, that's just not me. I cannot be passive. I was shy, but I wasn't passive, right? I was one of those weird, it was a weird thing of I cared enough about the arts, dance, drama, that kind of stuff, that even though it terrified me to put myself out there, it was like following a muse, right? And that's why everybody goes, oh, she just wants attention. If I could do this shit without the attention part, oh my God, it'd be so much better. If I could just make shit and not have to handle the comments, that'd be great. But that's not the gig, right? That's the thing, right? You have to get over that idea that if somebody doesn't like you, you're doing something wrong. You may notice I got over that, much to my mother's embarrassment to this day. My mother's just mortified when I do something overt and somebody gets their nose out of joint. But, we're very different people. So, this is the cauldron. This is the soup that informs that particular brand of girl awkward. And so when you're trying to figure out what is going on with a woman and you're a guy, so you don't know what it's like to be raised in that particular brand of bullshit. You were raised in the boy brand of bullshit. And if anybody's interested, it's interesting because with the trans people I know, there's this interesting mix with their journey that they totally understand the gendered bullshit people are raised in, right? But there are also things about them that it didn't take, right? So they've seen both sides. Their actual natural development is closer to not their assigned gender, but you know, the gender that feels right to them. But they know what it's like to be socialized that other way. And so if you're curious about how much of this is nature and how much of this is nurture, individual results may vary, but there is definitely a nurture component. And so guys have this driving insecurity that if, you know, you don't have relations with women, there's something wrong with you or there's something lacking. And if you go back to, you know, Victorian times, bachelorhood was considered an eccentricity, but it was a choice, right? It was considered, oh, well, that's not the norm, but it was an accepted lifestyle. You know, now we'd call them men going their own way, but it wasn't that I give up, women are awful, you know. No, it was just, I'm going to be a bachelor. Now, sometimes that was because they were closeted gay, but there you have it. Now there's this pressure, right? That there's this series of experiences that you have to have by a certain age or there's something wrong with you. That's the brainworms for guys. With women, it's become this mess because when I was a teenager, it was pretty simple if shitty. The minute you have sex once, you're a slut. You know, because that don't have sex before you're married thing was still pretty strong back in the day. It was just starting to get busted down because of HIV. Now it's this. There is some of that pressure to get physical with people to check a box. But then there is also the internalized slut shaming as well. How can you possibly tell where a woman is coming from based on that? Exactly. And that's the challenge for men is it's not as simple as put yourself in their place and think about how you would feel here because the socialization's not the same, right? That's the challenge because that's what they say. And that's why Sherlock Holmes had trouble reading women because the whole thing of put myself in there and pretend if I am there doesn't work with women. He didn't understand how they thought. And so that's why he often got a female sidekick for a particular case because, you know, he didn't understand the minds of women. So enlist a woman to help. And I think it's, on the one hand, women assume a lot of false things about men too, because, you know, I think if you read a lot of comics, you get a better sense of male mindsets than if it's like, you know, YA romance, because obviously the guys are so perfected in YA romance with female leads, but it's the same problem, right? In media for men, women are perfected. And you don't get the awkwardness because she is everything. And she doesn't feel like everything. And that to me is the untold cool Mary Jane Watson story. Telling a Spider-Man story, a Spider-Man Peter Parker story from her point of view in a modern context. I know there've been Mary Jane stories in the past, but like really, really real talk kind of thing. Because there's this other thing of I hope he likes me, but there's something wrong with me for hoping he likes me because I should be independent. I don't need no man, right? It's a mess. So, how do you navigate this? Well, admittedly it's tough, right? Because okay, you don't know they'll tell you when they don't like something. You don't know they'll tell you if they do like something. Um Nonverbal cues can be confusing. They won't approach you. It just feels like a no-win situation, right? And then you get into somebody says, well, be your friend. And then you get friend zoned, right? It's frustrating. I get it. I mean, it, it took me quite a bit of learning to understand girlier girls. I am so thankful for having Song because I just ask her now. um, but that's where the listening comes in and the checking things out, right? There, it does make it more likely that she will tell you the truth if you say it's okay to say no. Now that's anti-pickup artist, right? But here's the thing about those things. You do not want the super drunk, thirsty girl in a bar. You don't. That's a recipe for trouble. You know, it it is a great way to get falsely accused of something. It is a great way to have drama. It's bad news. You want that nice person who's as big a mess as you are, right? Not that you're a big mess. It's just you're awkward, they're awkward. That means you're invested. That means you actually care about what's going on. Because it's real easy to be charming with somebody when you don't care if they reciprocate, right? It's when you actually like somebody that it's like, and one of the things I've noticed about making people comfortable, because, I do that for a living, is asking questions. And, if they seem uncomfortable, backing off and switching to another topic, that's a good way of doing it, right? Pushing a little, not a lot, right? And this can be very, very hard when you're neurodivergent. I'm aware, like all this stuff for a person with autism, this is too confusing. It's confusing for someone who's neurotypical. And it does take practice. And it doesn't work all the time. I mean, some people are just damaged. And, it's better not to get tangled up in that. But, there is, keep an eye on the girl in the room who isn't saying as much. Because she's the one that doesn't get noticed, right? She's the sneaker wearing girl in the Taylor Swift song, not the short skirt wearing girl. Like, Taylor Swift. Going up and talking to her does not mean committing to anything but that, right? Even if nothing comes of it, she will appreciate someone noticing she's alive. But she's not used to being approached, so expect awkward. When you're interpreting somebody's reactions, also assume awkward. Also assume self-conscious. A big mistake a lot of people make, men and women. Like I said before, they assume the other person is totally confident together and they're the only one that's nervous. It's just not so. It's much better if you assume the other person is nervous. especially if you're nervous, because they're probably nervous. People in general are nervous meeting new people and nervous in social situations. Even people who are good at navigating social situations, it's a little nerve-wracking walking into a room full of first, because it's the unknown, right? You don't know what to expect. And so that, with everything, with business meetings, even if somebody's coming across like an arrogant SOB, assume that's a cover. Assume they're actually feeling awkward. Because trust me, most people are. Actors, oh my God, self-conscious, awkward inside, unless you've got a really good group or you got one of those people who's like in the zone, they get into characters, just they displace, but when they're themselves. Actors are some of the most nervous, self-conscious, awkward people ever. One of the reasons I backed away from acting. Like, I miss acting, but I backed away from it because that of other actors just, oh my God, can we chill? Can everyone in this room not be so invested in other people liking them? But if you assume that other people are just as awkward and unsure as you are. And so, you do things to kind of, hey, I haven't said much. What do you think about, ask a question. Like, what do you think about the party? Or what do you think about, or, what are the things I do with, mixers or something like that? I'll go up to somebody who's got one of those drinks. Hey, is that good? I don't know what to order. Because then they're just answering a question, right? It's safe. Something like that as an icebreaker, because then it's not, hey, I like you, right? No, it's just a simple question about a simple exchange. And then, neutral. And you don't have to say anything else then. You go, if you order it, you like it later because, hey, that was pretty good. Thanks for the recommendation or somewhere. Just keep it chill. Assume awkward. And it will be easier. And because if you go in thinking somebody's up here and you're down here, you're going to behave accordingly. Of course, you don't want it the other way around because you'll be kind of arrogant. But I find people accidentally come off condescending when they think that they're beneath another person. I think that's where a lot of accidental mansplaining air quotes, comes from, is people feeling like they have to sort of match the level of the woman they're talking to and being helpful, and it coming across as thinking the woman knows nothing when really you're actually trying to like artificially inflate yourself to her level. That is my theory based on what I've observed, right? And I'm somebody who if I'm feeling like, mansplained, I'd be like, why did you think I didn't know that? And somebody go, oh, I thought you knew it. Okay. Right? Some people even say, I was just trying to find something to say, and something as simple as, if you're going to get into something to show your knowledge, to show you're worthy, it's like, I'm sure you got into something. It's like, I'm sure you know this, but, it gives somebody say, no, actually I don't. I'm, interested. It's those little things that really change the dynamic of a conversation. And it sounds like it's not much, but when it comes to how women interpret things, it's everything, And the best people for long-lasting, committed relationships are those women who are awkward at first, not the people with like psychological problems. That's different. Think about women with like serious psychological problems. Is they're the aggressive, like life of the party, they're the ones you notice because they don't have the healthy inhibitions that somebody else does. Or there's somebody like me that just fucking fakes it because years of media and facilitator and, so on and so forth, years of that shit. My mother put me into the arts because I was so shy. It doesn't change that you're introverted, it just allows you to mask it more. So all this is learned behavior, so I know of what I speak. And yeah, you're going to get tongue-tied around cute girls. I get tongue-tied around cute girls. Cute girls are cute girls. Just assume she's as tongue-tied. It's a safer assumption. It's more likely to be right. And then if you're wrong, you can up it. But that's where I'd start. Because, yeah, women are much more awkward around everybody, but also men, than men tend to give women credit for. So there you have it. That's Manly Monday for this week. Help support this channel. Become a monthly patron. Patreon.com/Leanna K. Or buy a one-time Leanna Care session for someone who can use it but can't afford it. Coffee.com/Leanna K. Thanks for watching Manly Mondays.